Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama on Rajya Sabha Television with me, Frank Pereira. As always, let's begin with the latest headlines. India-US nuclear liability issue and participation in Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat to be the high focus areas of President Barack Obama's India visit starting on Sunday. Contact group on civil nuclear deal meets in London for the third time, but hurdles remain. President Barack Obama strikes a defiant tone in his State of the Union address, tells Republicans to back his middle-class economics and raise taxes on the rich. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley assures global investors on ongoing reforms, promises to rationalize subsidies and rebuild credibility on taxation. At the insistence of the US, Pakistan finally bans Jamaat-ud-Dawa and the Haqqani network. Unfazed by the ban, Hafiz Saeed says JUD will continue its activities. And Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz passes away. King Abdullah had been in hospital ailing with lung infection. His half-brother Salman is the new ruler. Well, India and the US are facing stumbling blocks in the effort to find a breakthrough in the nuclear deal. Ahead of Obama's visit to India, talks in London have not made headway on the key hurdles. Nuclear liability is one of the key issues that remain a sticking point. The question is whether the gaps can be bridged when Obama meets Prime Minister Modi on Sunday. Here's a report.
India and the US are trying to narrow differences on nuclear trade ahead of President Barack Obama's visit this week. On Thursday, a contact group set up by Obama and Prime Minister Narendra Modi met for a second day in London to hammer out an accord. But there are some sticking points that are yet to be ironed out. One of the major hurdles is the nuclear liability issue. India's liability law holds the suppliers directly liable in case of a nuclear accident. The US wants India to follow global norms under which the primary liability is with the operator. But India has ruled out any changes to its law, which was written under the shadow of the Bhopal gas disaster. To find a way around it, the US has offered that it will monitor material or equipment supplied by a third party and used in reactors built by them. But India is unlikely to compromise its nuclear sovereignty. All eyes are now on Obama and Modi with the hope that the bilateral meeting between the two will iron out all differences.
This is the third time that the contact group that was set up by Prime Minister and President Obama is meeting in the last 4 months. In fact, it is the third time they are meeting in approximately 45 days or so. So, you can see the element of effort that is going into discussions on the nuclear issue.
We are sure that with the kind of commitment both the Indian government and the US dispensation has shown towards the civil nuclear deal, definitely there would be a breakthrough in the days to come.
The Indo-US nuclear deal was worked out during the UPA-1 government in 2008, but the implementation has been stalled over the tough provisions in India's Civil Nuclear Liability Act. It remains to be seen if the two countries reach a settlement on the issue during Obama's visit. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat today is former Ambassador, Meera Shankar. Ambassador, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us. There has been much secrecy about President Obama's visit to India. No one seems to be divulging any kind of information. But what can we really expect from this visit?
Well, I think firstly you have to take a look at the symbolism of the visit. I mean, several years ago, you couldn't have imagined that the US president would be invited by India as the chief guest for Republic Day, or that if invited, the US president would accept the invitation. So the fact that India has chosen to invite the US president to be the chief guest, the fact that he has accepted this will be the first time that a US president is the chief guest, itself says something about the intention of both leaders and both countries to strengthen this relationship and the importance they attach. I think the second first is that this is the first time that any president is coming to India for the second time during his term.
Yes.
If you take a look earlier, visits of US presidents used to be once a decade.
Yes.
And, then I think President Clinton came once towards the end of his term. President Bush came once towards the end of his term. And President Obama came in his first term, and now he's coming again. So that itself speaks to the importance of the relationship. In terms of substance, I think there are a number of issues which are on the agenda. We can expect a defense cooperation agreement to replace the defense framework agreement, which has just expired. It was valid for 10 years. And there will be in place, I'm sure, after the visit, a new agreement which will provide the conditions and the objectives for the two countries to work together in this important sector. Now, here the new element is that for the first time the countries are talking not just about joint exercises or defense sales, but to look beyond it, to see what we can do together in the area of joint research, joint production and technology transfer.
Indeed. You know, one of the sticking issues is the nuclear liability issue. Do you see any kind of forward movement as far as that issue is concerned?
Well, both countries are trying very hard. You know, the Indian liability law, presented some problems for US companies who felt that it would make it commercially unviable for them to supply equipment if they were open to, if they were, subject to open-ended liability. Now, some of these issues have been addressed under the nuclear rules, and I think the government has now made a proposal for an insurance pool to take care of these concerns. There's another concern with regard to the tort provision in the liability law, which again, there is a sense that this could be open-ended. And here I think the government is willing to offer some assurances that this doesn't extend to suppliers. But the talks are ongoing, and I don't want to, speculate on what the outcome is going to be. Clearly, both countries are trying very hard to find a practical way forward, given that amending the legislation in India is not under consideration.
Indeed.
So within the four corners of the law that we have, how is it that we can proceed in a practical way to address the concerns of equipment suppliers? I think that is the effort right now. If it succeeds, it'll be a hat trick, but there are still stumbling blocks, including the US insistence that they be tracking the equipment and materials that they supply, whereas India has insisted that we have only subjected ourselves to international safeguards under the IAEA and not to, monitoring by individual countries. So it's not an easy issue to resolve, but what is evident is that both countries are trying for the first time to find a practical way forward. Otherwise, it was, look, your liability law is something we can't live with, and so you change it to conform to international standards, and from the Indian side, it was, we can't change it.
Indeed.
So, in a sense, there was a kind of an approach on both sides, which didn't really involve search for a consensus in a practical way, and this is happening now.
Prime Minister Modi invited Obama in November to be a part of the Republic Day celebrations, and President Obama immediately reciprocated and said yes, he would be a part of the celebrations. Is it also because, Obama's ratings in the US have gone down considerably from 2008, so President Obama seems to be cashing in on Prime Minister Modi's popularity?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say that this is something that, has, developed on the basis of the trust that the leaders have been able to establish with each other. And I think the key would have been the WTO agreement, because, this had been blocked when the new government came into power, and the whole trade facilitation agreement, which all countries had agreed to at Bali, was being held up. India was saying that you have to address our concerns on food security. We are not opposed to trade facilitation per se. This temporary, kind of waiver is not sufficient because we don't see will to have a more permanent solution. So, and then it was stuck. And India was being seen as a spoiler, in a sense, of the agreement. But following the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Obama, this issue was resolved. And I think that really, in a sense, establishes trust, that here are leaders who can do business with each other.
Sure.
So I would say that that would have been one of the key factors
that led to this.
establishing the trust between the two leaders.
All right, Ambassador, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, moving on now, of course, economic policies to benefit all, the fight against the Islamic State and a thrust against climate change, where the focus of US President Barack Obama's State of the Union address to the Congress on Tuesday evening. But some senior members of the Republican majority Congress have already dismissed his rhetoric as little more than class warfare. Here's more.
The President of the United States.
Barack Obama's first State of the Union address in the face of new Republican majority in Congress. The thrust trumpeting job growth and other signs of recovery from the 2008 economic crisis, boasting partly fulfilled promises on returning U.S. troops to peace.
Tonight, we turn the page. Tonight, after a breakthrough year for America, our economy is growing and creating jobs at the fastest pace since 1999. Tonight, for the first time since 9/11, our combat mission in Afghanistan is over. 6 years ago, nearly 180,000 American troops served in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Obama used the speech to promote an ambitious program of middle-class economics, citing the legacy of several social service schemes, as he pitched for a tax hike on the wealthy and greater equality for all sections.
Will we accept an economy where only a few of us do spectacularly well? Or will we commit ourselves to an economy that generates rising incomes and chances for everyone who makes the effort? We need a tax code that truly helps working Americans trying to get a leg up in the new economy, and we can achieve that together, helping hardworking families make ends meet, giving them the tools they need for good-paying jobs in this new economy, maintaining the conditions of growth and competitiveness. This is where America needs to go.
New ways to counter terrorist threats more than a decade after 9/11 was another focus area. The President asked Congress to formally approve new authorization for the ongoing battle against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria.
We stand united with people around the world who've been targeted by terrorists, from a school in Pakistan to the streets of Paris. We will continue to hunt down terrorists and dismantle their networks, and we reserve the right to act unilaterally, as we have done relentlessly since I took office, to take out terrorists who pose a direct threat to us and our allies. And tonight I call on this Congress to show the world that we are united in this mission by passing a resolution to authorize the use of force against ISIL.
Ending the embargo against former foe Cuba, taking on the climate change challenge, and a call to improve infrastructure were other points of Obama's speech. But watchers say the proposals won't go far. Republicans who now run the Senate and the House already label the speech a tired set of plans designed more towards elections that Obama faces in 2016. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Moving on now, the ongoing economic reforms in the country are much more than the Big Bang. This was the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley's pitch to attract global investors as he outlined the government's economic vision at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And as the budget season draws closer, he promised a lot more, but asked to simmer down expectations from the budget itself.
Wooing global investors, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley made strong promises on rationalizing subsidies on kerosene and cooking gas, rebuilding credibility of taxation structure, and calling a joint session of Parliament to get the insurance bill passed if it's not cleared in the coming session. Laying out the fiscal roadmap ahead of his first full-fledged budget, he sought to assure investors at the ongoing World Economic Forum that subsidies will not be completely eliminated but only rationalized to cut expenditure.
Well, I think our real potential is 9% plus. And therefore, we'd like to take India in that direction. We've had problems and challenges. We went below 5%, which by Indian standards is a very disappointing rate. Hopefully, we'll do a little better this year. Next year, I think, is going to be significantly better. And if we can continue to take decisions at the pace we are and eventually attract investment into India, I think then India is going to move much faster. And achieving our real potential will then appear to be more realistic.
Racing against time to convert various ordinances into law in the budget session, Jaitley expressed confidence that the insurance bill will be passed in the Rajya Sabha because the Congress is also in favour. Jaitley said, if it is not approved, we will go for a joint session of Parliament. If it is delayed beyond 6 months, we will go for a joint session where we will have a majority. Apparently referring to the controversial retrospective taxation of the previous government that has spooked global investors, Jaitley said one major challenge was to rebuild credibility of the Indian taxation structure. The finance minister also made it clear that he was against high taxes and believed in giving more money into the hands of the consumers. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but still to come. Saudi Arabia mourns the death of its ruler, Abdullah Abdulaziz. The king died aged 90 after a short illness. That and much more coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Back, you're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, Jamaat-ud-Dawa chief Hafiz Saeed remains defiant, saying his outfit would continue to function despite being included in Pakistan's banned list. The ban announced on Thursday will freeze the assets of the JUD and the Haqqani network. Pakistan's decision comes ahead of US President Barack Obama's visit to India. US had earlier put pressure on Pakistan to take necessary steps to neutralize the threat these groups present in the region. Here's more.
Pakistan has finally taken action against Jamaat-ud-Dawa, the terror group led by 26/11 Mumbai attack mastermind Hafiz Saeed. Islamabad has termed the group along with the Haqqani network operative in Af-Pak border region as banned outfits. The assets of these groups will be frozen after the ban is imposed. The ban comes after insistent pressure from US. Recently, US Secretary of State John Kerry urged Pakistan to step up its efforts against these outfits.
Terror groups like the Pakistani and Afghan Taliban, the Haqqani network, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and other groups continue to pose a threat not just to Pakistan and its neighbors, but also to the United States and the world.
India had been demanding Pakistan to take action against these groups. The ban could be seen as a positive move from Pakistan, but political parties and experts are skeptical.
By putting a ban on Jamaat-ud-Dawa, I think the commitment of Pakistan to fight against terrorism doesn't seem to be complete.
Banning of Jamaat-ud-Dawa at this juncture is definitely a welcome step, even if it has been done just to please the Americans as President Obama is visiting India.
The decision comes just days ahead of US President Barack Obama's visit to India. Prominent among some of the other groups banned are Harkat-ul-Jihad Islami and Harkat-ul-Mujahideen. Most of these groups operate out of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and the northwest frontier region in Pakistan. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
News from Southeast Asia now. Former Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra has been banned from politics for 5 years. She also faces criminal charges for negligence that could put her in jail for 10 years. Thailand's military-appointed legislature voted to successfully impeach Yingluck. She was impeached by the National Legislative Assembly over a controversial rice subsidy scheme which cost billions of dollars and triggered protests that toppled her government. However, Shinawatra was swift to denounce the move and vowed to fight the new corruption charges. The impeachment is seen by experts as an attempt to keep the powerful Shinawatra family at bay.
จึงถือว่าสภานิติบัญญัติแห่งชาติมีมติให้ถอดถอนนางสาวยิ่งลักษณ์ชินวัตรนายกรัฐมนตรีออกจากตำแหน่งปรากฏตามเอกสารใบรวมคะแนนของคณะกรรมการ
Going on now, Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah, who was known as a ruler committed to reforms, died on Friday. Abdullah's half-brother, Crown Prince Salman, pledged to continue his predecessor's policies after ascending to the throne. However, there are challenges ahead for the country at a time when there is alarm over the rise of Islamic State in the region and also turmoil in neighboring Yemen. Here's a report.
Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz breathed his last in a hospital in Riyadh weeks after he was admitted. Abdullah, who became king in 2006, was suffering from a lung infection. His 79-year-old half-brother Salman ascended the throne. The new king vowed to maintain the same approach as his predecessor and named half-brother Mukrin as his crown prince and heir.
We are monitoring them anywhere that we can possibly do that.
Now that we know that Yemen is still unstable.
In fact, I'll tell you, they are everywhere, and they're held by some close friends.
US President Barack Obama joined world leaders in hailing the late monarch's contributions to peace in the Middle East. Prime Minister Narendra Modi took to Twitter to express his condolences. In a series of tweets, Modi said that he was saddened by the passing away of King Abdullah, who had left a lasting impact on his country.
中方对阿卜杜拉国王的不幸逝世深表哀悼，向沙特政府和人民表示诚挚的慰问。阿卜杜拉国王呢是沙特杰出的领导人，生前一直致力于促进沙特国家的发展，维护中东海湾地区的和平与稳定，在沙特内外、国内外都享有很高的威望。
He was an experienced leader and a wise king. And he has had the courage in a very demanding period of time to stand up and to introduce a peace process for the Middle East.
His role in establishing peace between and putting an end to the Arab-Israeli conflict and the Palestinian-Israeli feud was instrumental. You will recall the Arab Initiative of 2002. I believe that the relations between Saudi Arabia and Egypt in particular will continue to be one of the cornerstones of the regional situation in the Middle East.
Despite the announcement of Salman ascending the throne, there are troubling questions about the stability of an unreformed absolute monarchy, especially at a time of turmoil in the region, including the destabilizing crisis in Yemen. Another issue for the new king would be managing relations with the United States, a source of disappointment in Riyadh after Obama sought to negotiate a nuclear deal, and also a wider rapprochement with Iran. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, much else has been unfolding around the world. Here's a quick wrap of the other international news of the week.
The European Central Bank has begun 2015 with a much-anticipated stimulus, revealing plans for a massive trillion euro bond purchase program to ward off deflation and end stagnation in the Eurozone economy. After holding key interest rates at their current all-time lows once again, the ECB on Thursday launched a scheme to buy 60 billion euros. The bank chief explained the aim was to drive Eurozone inflation, which turned negative in December, back up to the target of about 2%. 13 people were killed in shelling at a bus stop in the rebel-held city of Donetsk in Ukraine. The rebels blamed the Ukrainian forces for the shelling, while the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Pavlo Klimkin called it a terrorist attack, calling on Moscow to stop the terrorists. Fighting between the Ukrainian army and Russia-backed separatists has intensified in and around Donetsk. However, Ukraine's defense ministry says its troops have withdrawn from the main terminal of Donetsk airport. The head of Germany's anti-immigration movement Pegida stepped down after a photo showing him dressed as Adolf Hitler emerged online. Lutz Bachmann was featured on his Facebook page sporting a toothbrush moustache with his hair combed straight into a side parting to resemble the Nazi leader. Dresden police are investigating whether there are sufficient grounds to prosecute Bachmann.
Shifting gears now, time to bring you up to speed with all the sports news that you might have missed this week. Here's our sports wrap. Norwegian teenager Martin Ødegaard completed his move to Real Madrid on Thursday for €3 million. The 16-year-old midfielder signed a contract with the Champions League winners after passing a medical exam. Ødegaard will train with both the first team and the reserves but play for the second string, who are coached by France great Zinedine Zidane. In an attempt to diversify his business empire further, Chinese billionaire Wang Jianlin has purchased a 20% stake in Spanish football club Atletico Madrid for 45 million euros. Jianlin heads China's biggest property company, Dalian Wanda, which has been buying up big foreign brands amid a weak domestic real estate market, and this also includes US cinema chain AMC and luxury British yacht maker Sunseeker. Dalian Wanda is the first Chinese company to invest in a top European football club. The world governing body of snooker has submitted a bid to have the sport included at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. The World Professional Billiards and Snooker Association says snooker should be accepted because of its worldwide appeal. Tokyo can accept at least one new sport to its Olympic program. The International Olympic Committee recently changed its rules to allow new sports to enter the Games more easily to freshen up the program. Moving on now, here's a look at what's creating a buzz in the world of show business. Here's our entertainment roundup.
Singer Rihanna has won a legal battle against high street store Topshop over a t-shirt bearing her image. The Court of Appeal in London upheld a ban on the store selling a sleeveless t-shirt featuring a photo of the star without obtaining her permission. In the first successful celebrity case of its kind, 3 appeal judges agreed marketing the item without Rihanna's approval amounted to passing off. In other words, the unauthorized image was damaging to Rihanna's brand. An Israeli man has been arrested on suspicion of hacking into the computers of pop stars, including Madonna, and selling unreleased songs online. Israeli police said the man was suspected of stealing work from several unnamed international stars. A private investigator connected to the case confirmed Madonna was among them. The pop star said she was profoundly grateful to those who helped arrest the hacker and described the experience as devastating and hurtful. Adele has reportedly been flown to Los Angeles by MGM bosses to secretly record a new soundtrack for the upcoming James Bond film Spectre. Reports said that while it was believed that the 22-year-old Oscar-winning singer was in town for her new album, she was actually working on a music idea for the spy flick. Adele had bagged a Golden Globe, BAFTA and Oscar for the previous Bond theme Skyfall, which became the highest-grossing 007 adventure of all time.
And finally, the world's official beauty queen will be announced on Sunday as the 3rd annual Miss Universe crowns their winner. On Wednesday, the contestants from 88 countries and territories competed in a preliminary round in Miami, strutting their stuff in gowns and showing off their national costumes. I'm going to leave you this week with visuals from the United States. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.